This is what happens when your budget runs out. Alfred, help me!
Superheroes. Characters based on the simplest literary archetype, the epic hero, given almost godlike status based on their bravery, abilities, and pursuits of justice. They're everywhere and universally loved by all. Well, except maybe by some old school film directors like Martin Scorsese and James Cameron.
A lot of the Marvel films are theme park rides.
I said superhero films.
Superhero films.
I don't even know Marvel. I remember it was a comic book.
James Cameron is fed up of Marvel's superhero movies. The Avatar filmmaker is hoping people will get Avenger fatigue soon, as he is sick of seeing the same movies again and again.
Granted, one can see their points to an extent because of the sheer overblown, bloated, and all-consuming nature of superhero fandom we see today. That, and from a cinematic perspective, pretty much every superhero movie follows the same steps. The archetypal hero's journey, the villain's creation, the conflict, blah, blah, blah.
As a writer with a very cynical, melancholic, realistic view on things, I'll tell you one thing that I've learned from the very get-go, from the very, very beginning. There is no such thing as an original story anymore, period. Only new variations of old ideas. Look at your fantasy movies, your science fiction stuff, all that, and tell me I'm not right. Just as a for instance, take your old Star Wars stuff and then look at Lord of the Rings. All the characters in Star Wars have some type of counterpart, some type of archetype that is present in Lord of the Rings. Just as an example, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Gandalf.
Here endeth the lesson.
But you see, dear viewer, comic books are a common source of fun these days. Technically, because of movies, streaming services, merchandising, video games, etc., they're more acceptable now as a form of entertainment than they'd ever been before. They're everywhere, no matter where you turn. It's a weird thing to be a nerd now for not being a fan of comic book related things. It's a complete 180. You're still a nerd if you read comic books because nobody reads anymore. But otherwise, not nerdy. Nerddom is now as toxic of an environment as the dude bro preppy athletes of yesteryear. At least there aren't any cargo shorts and tied sweaters. However, I want to take you back to a time before Marvel ruled the world. Yeah, I'm calling out Marvel a little here. I love you, always did, before you were the beast you are now, but you're smothering me. Maybe it's the fault of your round-eared overlord. Who are we kidding? It is. I want to take you to a time when superheroes were not necessarily hot commodities. I want to take you to the archaic year of 1989, when fashions were still awful, Star Wars only had one trilogy, and CGI was a mere babe. Before this time, the only successful comic book films we'd had were of Superman, and there were 4 of those already. Okay, so maybe only 2 of them were successful. Yeah, just watch 1 and 2. The others are a steaming pile of shit. But otherwise, comic book characters were only known for television, cartoons, or low-budget serials outside of their written and drawn worlds. As such, with Superman done in by a weird, long-fingernailed nuclear person thing, we needed a hero to take the reins, to help single-handedly usher in an era of dark, brooding superhero films.
We needed a silent guardian. Watchful protector.
A dark night.
Alright, wrong movie. Let me use a better quote.
This town needs an enema.
Sure, fine. Go ahead. Welcome to Gregorious Views, and if this is your first time, strap in and try and relax. And if it isn't your first time, well, I'm glad to see you were foolish enough to come back. Oh, and by the way, follow me on Twitter if you'd like updates on these videos and other little things. Just thought I'd, state that. Please follow me. Before Before I start today's video, I'd like to give a little shout out to some former students of mine. They operate a gaming channel by the name of The McNeil Plays. It'll be down here at the bottom. They're funny guys. They make me laugh, kind of like they used to when they were in my classes a couple of years back. It was usually because I was roasting them pretty often.
I'm a prick.
But making me laugh is something of a miracle and very hard to pull off because normally I look like this. I can't help it! And you should check them out if you're into games like I am. You won't be disappointed. Alright, so we're back to movies with this video, and I decided to veer off what will likely become the beaten path of horror and go into one of my absolute all-time favorite movies from when I was a kid up until now, 1989's Batman. I've been a Batman fan from a young age, instilled in me by my mom, who primarily grew up with the 1960s Batman TV show and all of its comic book hammy glory. And that, along with this film and other things, are what set me along the path to become the Bat fan that I am today.
Now, contrary to how it may have sounded in the intro, I am a massive comic book fan, even if not a diehard reader of comics. I enjoy the generally more lighthearted nature of Marvel, but I've also always been a DC fan, which has gained more of a deeper, darker reputation in recent years, and of Batman especially. It may be cliche to most comic fans, most of whom have never read a comic. Don't deny who you are to like a well-known hero like the Dark Knight, but I won't apologize for it. It's like when you're called lame for liking T-Rex out of all the dinosaurs. I'm sorry, but I just like the T-Rex. Leave me alone! So, why do I like Batman? Well, he's one of the most psychologically complex and intelligent heroes out there. A mix of Sherlock Holmes, Zorro, and the Shadow all rolled into one. Look them up on Google, kids. He wears black, which, unless you're a cigarette-toting goth, is never not cool, and, I don't know, his appearance as a bat always intrigued me. Plus, he has the most interesting and sometimes frightening assortment of villains, his rogues gallery, out of any hero, rivaled maybe by Marvel's Spider-Man. Created by artist Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger, Batman is just one of the greatest to me, hands down, bar none, drop the mic. After all, the majority of comics and graphic novels I own or have read are Batman-related. I even wrote a research paper for an independent study in college on Batman, tracing his creation and connections to archetypes and ideals present in literature. Sucker was 25 pages of pure genius.
The point is, Gregorious hearts Batman.
Now, by 1989, a film based on Batman had been in development for a long time, and because Superman was the only comic character with full-length American features under his belt, there was plenty of room for another to fill the void.
I'd like to fill her void.
Whoa! Inappropriate and wrong movie anyway.
Warning! Lowbrow humor!
My eyebrows haven't recovered from last time, and you can't see them under the mask anyway. But I'll try. I'm trying so hard! Ah! There were universal fears, of course, even in the days before the internet. Who would direct? Who would play the hero? Would it be campy like the Adam West television show? As we know now, it was film auteur, artist, and self-proclaimed oddball Tim Burton who would take directing duties, fresh off of recent successes like Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice, both of which happen to be comedies.
No, God!
But, hang on. Michael Keaton would play Batman. And he was known for roles such as Mr. Mom and the title character in Beetlejuice, which were also comedies.
No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Okay, so it's understandable in retrospect why so many were horrified. Really, it's common knowledge by now, but fans were in an uproar. Or at least as big of one as could be managed before online forums. Again, comic fans can be incredibly protective of their heroes, and rightfully so, even though many get way too toxic. Anyway, because superheroes were not as hot,
That is America's ass.
as As adored as they are in the present Marvel age, the buzz this film generated at the time of its release cannot be understated. While there were those fears, there was a great deal of excitement. It was Batmania everywhere with all of the merchandising and the like. When the film released in the summer of '89, the same year as blockbusters like Ghostbusters 2, Lethal Weapon 2, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, it became the highest earning DC film of all time until 2008, and it proved all naysayers of both Burton and Keaton wrong, becoming what was, for a long time, the staple of Dark Knight live-action media. So what do I think? Well, let's get started with the plot in another episode of Story Time with Gregorious! Gotham City is a place of corruption and lawlessness, where innocents are under constant threat from the grip of organized crime, primarily mob boss Carl Grissom, who rules over everything. However, there have been sightings of something that is fighting back against the crime element, leaving criminals terrified and speaking of what seems to be a monstrous bat-like entity. Something that Gotham Globe reporter Alexander Knox knows as the Batman. This legend also draws in another reporter outside of Gotham named Vicky Vale, and she works with Knox to determine who or what the Batman is. As the city nears its bicentennial, the mayor pushes law enforcement, including District Attorney Harvey Dent and Commissioner Jim Gordon, to take down Grissom and put a stop to the Batman as well. However, turmoil within Grissom's organization arises when he suspects his right hand, Jack Napier, of infidelity with his girlfriend, and sets Jack up to be killed in a shootout with police led by corrupt cop Lieutenant Eckhart. It backfires when not only Gordon arrives to stop the chaos, but Batman arrives as well and fights to help the police, leading to Jack being injured by a ricocheting bullet and dropped accidentally into a vat of toxic chemicals. Meanwhile, Vicky begins a relationship with the reclusive billionaire Bruce Wayne, and learns later that not only did he lose his parents in a brutal robbery, but that he has used his fortune to take to the streets as the vigilante Batman. In time, Jack Napier resurfaces disfigured and changed by the chemicals, taking on the moniker of the Joker, and kills Grissom, taking over his organization, and begins not only terrorizing Gotham, but declaring war on Batman as well, leaving Bruce to not only balance his love affair with Vicky, but to also protect Gotham and its citizens from a homicidal madman. Alright, so let's begin with the acting. Like I said earlier, Michael Keaton's casting as Bruce Wayne was no less than controversial at the time. How could a slender, not overly muscular man without a lantern jaw possibly play the brooding superhero? Mr. Mom can't be the Dark Knight. It wasn't possible, but against all expectations, he pulled it off. He didn't go for the ham-fisted wink at the audience, old chum Batman we'd seen the late Adam West perform either. He made Batman dark, brooding, and in some ways intimidating. He barely spoke and didn't have to. All it took was his introduction and his first lines to win audiences, me included.
I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
It's funny, too, how iconic that line became just due to how basic it was. And it was Keaton's idea.
Sure, he's slightly outshined by Jack's Joker, as would happen to anyone, but the genius comes from Keaton's minimalistic approach to both sides of his character. With Bruce, who isn't as fleshed out as in later portrayals as a man putting on a playboy facade like Christian Bale's Bruce, Keaton makes him enigmatic and dangerously unpredictable in some scenes, and awkwardly charming the next. With Batman, Keaton's movements and actions play up the theatricality of the character, which is a key component of Batman. Sure, some of the fight scenes are awkward due to Bob Ringwood's suit design.
Being able to move your neck and turn your head is for pansies.
But Keaton's self-proclaimed claustrophobia helped amplify the brooding, unnerving factor imperative for Batman's effectiveness.
And before I go on, can I just say that I like the suit in this movie? Yeah, it's rubber. Yeah, the neck doesn't turn, yada, yada. But I do like the fact that the mask is a little bit bigger than Michael Keaton's face, so it does a better job at concealing Bruce's identity. I mean, just as reference, look at the Batman Returns suit. Yeah, it fits a bit closer, look at the eyebrows and everything. But if you saw Bruce Wayne on the street, and then you saw the Batman Returns suit with Bruce inside, you would know that Bruce was Batman. There would be no question. Also, I like the extra points on the bat symbol in this movie. Not sure why, I just do.
The point is, Keaton's Batman is a great one, and my personal favorite live-action one. Plus, he didn't suck down a gravel milkshake topped with broken glass when he spoke.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Where were the other drugs going?
Where are the other drugs going?
Where are they?
Where are they?
Where are they?
Where are they?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
I'm not wearing hockey pads. Pants. I'm not wearing them. I don't play hockey. The suit's not really good for hockey. I don't move so fast. You
know what? All of you owe Michael Keaton a great deal of gratitude in his role as Batman. You know why? The voice. Yeah. Before Michael Keaton came along, and this is for all of you detractors out there, before Michael Keaton came along, Batman would have spoken in the exact same way that Bruce Wayne spoke. Look at Adam West. Michael Keaton was the one that came along and said, maybe Batman ought to speak at a lower register than Bruce so that there's a duality. There is the character of Bruce Wayne and the character of Batman, and they're separate. Yeah. So you guys owe that to him. Not Kevin Conroy. I love Kevin Conroy. Don't get me wrong. Michael's the one that suggested it. Subtle, but genius. Tell Michael thank you. Thank him!
Next, of course, is the first billed actor, the legendary Jack Nicholson. His version of the Joker became the staple of live-action Jokers and, in my opinion, is still the best, most rounded live-action interpretation overall.
What? What is that? Do I hear fanboys and fangirls getting terminal cases of butt hurt?
Heath Ledger is the best Joker, bar none. What about Joaquin Phoenix? His was so good. They're great too, don't get me wrong. But let me put it this way. Ledger was a terrorist. Phoenix was a mentally ill comedian. While Jack is a gangster, he is mentally ill with a macabre sense of humor. So instead of taking one area and focusing on it like the other two, I felt that Jack incorporated multiple elements. He pulled many of the same qualities that Mark Hamill does in his vocal interpretation of the character, making the Joker both fun and frightening when it calls for it. It's that unpredictability. Oh, and the less said about the Leto Joker, the better. Jack gets my vote as the overall best. He's funny in a weird sort of way, sly and devilish, but also dangerous, but still in a comedic way. You literally laugh as you die, which is the point of the Joker's character. Plus, the man's natural smile is perfect. I love the makeup, granting him a rictus grin, and the explanation of botched plastic surgery to repair a bullet wound is both genius and ludicrous. I even liked his slightly longer nose and chin. He looked as though pulled straight from the comics. I think, truthfully, it'd have been a bit better if he were a little younger in the role, but he did a great job that became iconic, and it still remains so. It's just a shame that this film committed a cardinal sin that many other comic films do, and killed him off. But I digress. Now for the female lead. As I get older, I kind of find Kim Basinger...
Kim Basinger? Basinger?
to be kind of one note, and that note is generally shrill and high-pitched. It's not really her fault, I suppose. She had some instances of great acting in other films like LA Confidential, and while she's not bad here, she's just there. I prefer the parts where she and Bruce are together. When she's around Batman or Joker, she generally just screams. The other cast members are great, even if in some cases they're not given too much to do. Robert Wuhl as a scene stealer is the appropriately smarmy reporter Knox, and some of his jokes are memorable, even though some people find him annoying.
Probably the same people who think that this
I'm Batman.
is better than this.
I'm Batman.
Michael Gough was an inspired choice for Alfred. Even if Alfred did bring the one chick into the Batcave way too early in his career. He is still my favorite live-action Alfred. Michael Caine comes close. He has the sarcastic but sweet nature about him, though it would have been nice to see him play a bigger role in Batman's work in this film. You know, instead of letting Vicky into the cave. Character actor Pat Hingle, who'd go on to play Commissioner Gordon in the next 3 movies, was, I felt, a good choice, though they gave him little to do. He had a bigger role here than in later films, and it's a shame that he's not a major player. Same with Harvey Dent, played by Billy D. Williams.
It's nice to see that soon, as of the date of this video, we'll get to see Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, even if it is in comic book form. That was the whole reason he signed on for the part in the first place. He thought he was going to become Two-Face, and of course we know, as history shows us, that didn't happen. But it is cool that we'll finally get to see it. It's also a shame that an excellent actor like Tommy Lee Jones didn't do so well in the role in Batman Forever, namely because Two-Face ended up being written as a Joker knockoff. Yeah, but that's another gripe for another day. And while I'm happy about Billy D., not too happy about Marlon Wayans as Robin, though.
I can't disregard William Hootkins, one of those actors who you've seen many times but never remember his name. Most remember him as Porkins from the original Star Wars.
All right, so wasn't that Star Wars name just a little bit too on the nose? Porkins? You might as well have called him Fatty McOinker or Tubbs Lardington or some crap. Porkins. Yeah, you get it? 'Cause he's fat. It's a weight joke.
His character, Eckhart, is something of a stand-in for the more well-known comic character Harvey Bullock, but he serves his purpose at being a gravelly-voiced sleazeball. And lastly, I can't forget Jack Palance. According to stories, he was cast as someone who'd seem intimidating even to the grandeur that is Jack Nicholson. And he pulled it off. Something about Palance and Nicholson together, and he weirdly seemed able to slightly outmatch Nicholson in the threatening department. And now for the music. The score mostly is epic. I say mostly because of the fact that the song Beautiful Dreamer is implemented throughout, and I find that kind of tacked on. But the Batman theme itself is pure, unadulterated magic and is one of the greatest pieces of music I've ever heard in a film. It's so strangely perfect for the character. Hints of Die Fledermaus by Strauss and a lot of the Russian-style beats give Batman's theme such a grandiose identity, and the different variations of it are so awesome, whether it's used to enhance the dark, mysterious mood, like the opening parts of the opening credits, or as a charge to battle, heard over and over during the chaotic Batwing parade sequence. Next to Elfman's Beetlejuice score and even Batman Returns, this is my favorite Danny Elfman score, hands down.
No offense to Hans Zimmer, who I also love, but Danny's theme is superior. Sorry, Hans, but Danny's Batman theme is better than yours. Can't be topped. I'm sorry. I see Batman, I hear Danny Elfman Batman music, not Hans Zimmer. Sorry, man.
Now, the songs by Prince aren't bad either, but some are kind of out of place. Party Man, the Joker's museum song, and the scene itself are iconic for me, as is the song Trust during the parade scene. But many of the other songs are just, Prince talking about sex. And honestly, that's what Prince did well. Rest in peace, my man. But honestly, they do conflict mostly with the world of Batman. The sets and special effects deserve mentioning here too in terms of how well they're done. The late Anton Furst won an Academy Award for his set design, taking Burton's words into consideration. Gotham City was to look like hell erupting from the earth. It's a quagmire
Giggity, giggity, giggity.
of conflicting architectural designs, topped off with Tim Burton's own love of German expressionism, and it gives Gotham its own seedy, grotesque, and downright dirty criminal feel. It's not the cleaner Chicago seen in Nolan's films, and thus is a monster of its own. Also, first designed the absolute best Batmobile. Like, holy crap, this car is perfect. It was sleek, powerful, and had such a great look to it. It's like the Aston Martin DB5 for James Bond. Perfection.
Perfection.
As for the effects, the late Derek Meddings, known for his effects work in the Superman films and in James Bond films such as Moonraker. Not a great movie, but great effects. Does a superb job in Batman. Much like practical makeup effects and animatronics, I absolutely love miniatures. I can't help it. And if they're done well, then all the better. Meddings' work is especially prominent and a sight to behold during the parade Batwing climax of the film. And in all honesty, his Batwing model gave us perhaps one of the most iconic Batman shots ever. Director Tim Burton's style can't be disregarded either. Warner Brothers took something of a gamble in hiring him, this former Disney animator and director of quirky comedies, but as it turned out with Keaton, it worked. Burton ended up being a perfect choice to bring out the darkness of Batman's world. Even though he is admittedly not well versed in the comic world of the Caped Crusader, he was on record as saying The Killing Joke was the first and only Batman comic he'd ever read before doing the film. His sensibilities helped elevate Batman beyond the Adam West era. I also liked his interpretation of how he viewed Batman and Joker as two freaks from different sides. That was a unique view that worked within his world.
Now, I felt that he was given a bit too much creative freedom in the sequel, making it into an overly indulgent Burton world of freaks and monsters, just populated with a few Batman characters here and there. But I'll cover that another time, I guess. This movie just worked better for me.
Finally, let's look at some praise outside of the technical aspects. My biggest compliment is about the story, and it's a big pro for me. It's how Bruce's background is presented. Granted, there are a lot of faults with it, which I'll cover in the cons portion of this video, but the presentation is what's great. But Gregorious, you fickle, warped portrait of masculinity, whatever do you mean by how his background is presented? Well, friends, this film did something that every other comic book origin movie did and does not do. It didn't open with the hero's creation and instead made it a bit of a mystery. Yeah, I know, there isn't any mystery to Batman. He's a billionaire playboy with serious mental issues and a desire for justice borderlining on revenge, choosing to fight crime while dressed as a bat, something that he fears and believes can be a symbol to inspire fear in criminals, all to keep what happened to him as a child from ever happening to anyone else.
You're welcome. I just simplified Batman into one sentence for you. My point is, yes, the audience knows him, but it is nice for the characters to slowly piece together little bits of the mystery and figure out who Batman is along with the audience.
Of course, the scene where he hangs from his feet upside down would scream, "Dude, this guy a bat!" It makes it more fun. Every one of Marvel's origin films, and honestly, the DC films have done this too, they've all followed the same basic template of Step 1. Hero begins normally until inciting incident and discovers abilities, becoming super. Step 2. Hero inadvertently creates villain, or villain is created as some form of mirror image of hero. And Step 3. Hero and villain battle for supremacy. Batman 89 has elements of this too, but the structure is shuffled a little bit and it keeps it interesting. Oh, and one last bit of praise. There's no tacked on Robin. Sure, Robin can be handled well, and sure, the producers originally planned on Robin being hinted at in the movie's climax. Remember my earlier offhand remark about Marlon Wayans as Robin? Yeah. But they still left him out. Batman's brooding earlier career works so much better with him as a loner. And you know what? Even the great Mr. Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy tacked Robin on at the end of The Dark Knight Rises. Even the glorious Nolan succumbed. Though it was just a guy with the first name Robin.
You serious?
I don't consider it a perfect film or a perfect Batman film by any stretch, but it does feel the most like the comics from the era in which it was released. There are weaknesses in retrospect, obviously, so let's go ahead and tackle those.
Funny enough, most of my gripes about the film overall focus on the story rather than much else. Okay, except for the animated Batman at the beginning. It's kind of cool, but it doesn't fit. I've already mentioned Basinger's acting and the whole, Master Bruce, here's this woman you've completed the horizontal mambo with. I thought it'd be a great idea to reveal your identity and let her see your secret hideout, even though you're about to go to battle against your arch nemesis. Thing Alfred pulled, but there are others, so let me try to tackle them in terms of least important to, well, most forgivable to me. And maybe you too. First, and this one's minor, but I would have liked to see some kind of interaction with Dent, Gordon, and Batman. You know, like what we saw in The Dark Knight, and definitely what has been a staple in comic stories for years. Now, I know Batman is definitely treated as a mysterious vigilante here, one that Gordon and others want to see arrested, only turning around by the end when Batman defeats the Joker. But it would have been nice to see Batman and Gordon interact, and possibly Dent. Like I mentioned, though, neither Gordon nor Dent are given much to do, and that's kind of a sin considering their importance to Batman canon. We also should have seen more of Bruce's training. I'm not saying we needed the first hour devoted to Bruce's shaping into Batman like we saw in Batman Begins. There could have been little flashbacks here and there, much like what we see with the death of his parents in this film. Something that could have not only showed the audience how he prepared himself for a war against crime, but also to show his obsession and drive for justice. It'd even be nice to see exactly why he settled on a bat as his symbol. I know why from the comics, but it'd be good to see. Instead, it comes off as Bruce seeing his parents die, then becoming a cosplaying nut job in a bat suit using gadgets and vehicles to fight crime 20-odd years later. It's kind of jarring. Next, the Joker admittedly is given a bit too much focus in the film. I get that this is also an origin story for him, and honestly, I don't mind that the Joker has a name and background here. I also don't care that his name, Jack Napier, is a play on jackanape, meaning clown. I only bring this up because so many so-called Batman elitists that either read The Killing Joke or that watch The Dark Knight think that the Joker cannot have an origin set in stone and must be multiple choice. Look, kids, the animated series gave Joker a gangster background too, so his having a concrete origin isn't the issue. It's just that he's featured generally more than Batman. Nicholson did have top billing after all, but the story does focus too much on him, and that's problematic in a way, when you take away from the title character. The Joker's plot also doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I know how Joker usually is. His plans are as twisted and psychotic as he is. Here, throughout, it's causing chaos in a bid to win more attention than Batman. It's like a weird contest. I get that, but I'm mainly referring to his parade plot where he tells Gotham he'll dump $1 million on the crowd, and the people of Gotham run out to a parade hosted by who they know to be a homicidal maniac just for money when they know that he's probably going to kill them. Why?
It makes no sense. Wait a minute. Wait. No, it makes perfect sense. Take a look at our society and tell me it doesn't make sense.
Folks were told to stay off roadways unless absolutely, positively necessary.
I wanted donuts.
See? Perfect sense. Sorry, I take it back.
I also don't like the fact that they made the Joker kind of a horn dog in this movie. Like, why is one of his primary goals to get Vicky Vale? It's as though elements of Nicholson's Van Horn character from The Witches of Eastwick crept into the character here. Yes, Joker has a mall in this story, Alicia, and this was 3 years before Harley Quinn was introduced, a product of the animated series that became an official character in canon, and after he kills Alicia, I can understand his pursuit of another woman. But either way, it's just odd for the character. Now, a big point of contention is Batman violating his no-killing rule he has in the comics. Strangely, I have no issue with Batman killing.
I know.
Gregorious acts like a Batman purist, but he has no problem when he kills people. Sacrilege!
Let me be specific.
In this film, I had no issue with him killing. First off, in the original Batman comics all the way back in 1939, he killed criminals, carried a gun. Regulations on comic books, which were aimed at children, were later set in place so that characters like Batman couldn't do that. Second, the other cinematic Batmen, not including Kilmer or Clooney because I consider them part of this universe, also killed. Bale killed. Don't give me that crap about how he didn't have to save Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul. I don't say Ra's al Ghul, sorry. And it didn't count. Or how he tackled Harvey Dent to his death. And Batfleck, he straight up slaughtered people. So, yeah. In this film, Batman's killing is attempting to save others, with the exception of when he outright tries to shoot Joker in the Batwing. At least he, misses? And he doesn't go full-on psycho until Batman returns. Remember the strong man he straps a bomb onto and he smiles? Awesome. But too far.
Batman shouldn't kill kids. But collateral damage happens.
Lastly, perhaps the biggest issue people take with this film, aside from Batman's murderous tendencies, however, is the murderer of his parents. Yeah, Joe Chill should have killed his parents. I know, I get that, and think the same should have been done too. But, like I usually do, I'll play devil's advocate here and say that it was a way to make the conflict between Batman and Joker more personal. But it's too neat, contrived, and you just don't screw that much with an origin. And don't blame the writer, Sam Hamm, for that. Same with the Alfred letting Vicky in thing. Those two were apparently Mr. Burton. So, to wrap up, is Batman 89 good? I'd like to think so for what it is. Sure, it's dated by today's standards in many regards, but outside of the animated series, this Batman is still my definitive one. Is it because of nostalgia? Sure, that's obvious. But also it's because of how all of its individual elements come together and how they work together, creating a film that feels like a perfect mix of realism and comic book sensibilities. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and it has a lot of flaws, but taken for what it was a definitive first step in the right direction for comic films. And truthfully, I think many of the flaws were a result of Warner Brothers not expecting this film to be as successful as it ended up being. What I mean is, most first movies in a series are risky and might not take off into a franchise, so a focus on making things as perfect as possible might not be in the cards. I don't know. Either way, Batman 89 was a success beyond itself. Not only did it lead to a plethora of serious comic book adaptations after it, from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to The Crow, but it was also the first step toward the iconic and frequently mentioned in this video animated series from Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, and, in all fairness, the DC animated universe itself. Without this film, we wouldn't be where we are now, even with Marvel. If this film and others would have had better planning, think of where DC would be compared to, sadly, where it is. I just want to add that I find it funny when I think that Tim Burton has considered the film boring and not one of his best. Most probably consider his best film Edward Scissorhands. That one's great, sure, but if I had to choose, I'd go with Beetlejuice. Yet Batman is one of his better efforts. And why do I think that? Because it doesn't go full Burton. It has just enough. And maybe that's why he considers it lesser. He's entitled to do so, even though I strongly disagree.
Look, Tim, I love your work. I really, really do. But I wish you'd return to the style that you had. I've seen Planet of the Apes, and I've seen Alice in Wonderland, and that's just two offhand. Batman is not your worst work by a long stretch.
No!
Is Batman 89 a perfect Batman film? Absolutely not. Most would award that to The Dark Knight, and while that is an impressive film that dared to be different, it certainly wasn't perfect either. Is it the worst Batman film? Oh no, that's one I think we all know by now.
Freeze, you're mad. If this capsule explodes, it'll slaughter thousands.
Freeze well.
Jeez, I almost made it without an interruption from Schwarzenegger Freeze, but since I didn't say any puns, he'll be gone shortly, I think.
Stay cool, bird boy.
Is Batman 89 better as a cultural sensation than as a film on its own? Sure. Is Batman 89 a film you should visit or revisit as a comic book fan, especially knowing that Michael Keaton will be putting on the cowl again in the upcoming and hopefully decent Flash film? Please make a Batman Beyond film, please, please, please!
Absolutely. But hey, that's just my view. God, this mask hurts. The pain I endure for your entertainment. Hey guys, thanks again for watching, and if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Help me spread the word to others who might be into this so they can get in on the conversation too. The next video will be video game oriented, and I promise it'll be a shorter one. So until then, I'm going to give you 2 hints. 1, Dia de los Muertos. 2, Casablanca. Later. Mask.